This story is told from the perspective of a female. I work in a diner off a quiet highway, in a very quiet town in the south. I enjoy my job, and I have a lot of fun getting to know customers. You get to meet a lot of people that stop by for coffee regularly, and as far as a job goes, I wouldn't want to do anything else. Sure, some of the customers can get kind of pervy and fresh with members of staff, but nothing that I can't handle. Well, until I met this one customer, that is. We had this customer that would come in very regularly. He said he worked in IT and had a good job, but I didn't really believe that he had a job at all. I'm pretty sure he was on welfare. He would stop by the diner at least once a day, sometimes even a few times a day, and order the cheapest things on the menu, and stay in the diner for hours and hours at a time. What made me feel quite uncomfortable was how he would stare at me. He would stare at me as though I was a piece of meat, and he would stare at my legs and not even try and hide it. The guy was a mega perv, and he gave me the creeps every time I would see his car pull up to the diner. Over time, he went from staring to asking me out every time he would come in, and he began asking other members of staff where I lived and if I was married and where did I go to school. He then also began leaving weird letters for me at the cash register when he would pay. The letters started off pretty normal, basic chit-chat, and got weirder and weirder. I would never reply and leave the notes there, but he still continued writing them. His last letter said horrible and sick things like, "I wonder what your arse smells like. Can I have some of your hair?" And, "I wish the diner served your feet on the menu." The next time I saw this guy, I confronted him and told him if he carried on, I would have him arrested. He apologized and actually seemed kind of ashamed, and he told me that he would stop. He was telling the truth. The letters did stop, but his weird stalking only got worse and more bizarre. He continued going to the diner, staying there for hours, getting endless refills of coffee, and staring at me all day long. On one day, I finished work around 5 o'clock, and was heading home. When I was about halfway home, I noticed I had not one, but 2 flat tires. I pulled over to the side of the road, and to my absolute horror, I saw the pervert's car slowly drive down the road, and pull up behind my car. He got out of his car, and said, "Car trouble?" I couldn't believe it. It must have slashed my tires in the diner car park, and has followed me out here. He asked me if I wanted him to take me home. I told him I would wait for my husband to come and pick me up. He said okay and drove off, but I had the feeling that he had not really driven away, and that he was still there, somewhere close by, watching me. I waited for my husband for an hour. He finally came and helped me change the tires. When he looked at the tires, he could see that it was something sharp that had been stuck intentionally into both of the back tires. I was really freaked out at this point, freaked out from the lengths this freak was prepared to go. We drove back home together, and my husband told me that he would start picking me up from work from now on. A week later, I had been out at the supermarket for an evening grocery run. As I pulled up into the driveway, I could see my bedroom light on, and when I walked into the house, I could hear my husband upstairs. I was happy that he was home from work, because it meant I could start cooking straight away. I shouted up if he wanted to eat mac and cheese for dinner, and he just responded, which was pretty typical of my husband. I put the groceries down and began cooking, when I received a text message. When I checked my phone, and I saw who the message was from, I had to look twice. It was my husband, asking if I'd bought his favourite whiskey at the store. I sent him a message back, saying, "Why are you texting me, if you're upstairs?" His next message came back instantly. Remembering it still sends chills down my spine. It read, "I am not home. Get out of the house now." I turned around. I could hear footsteps. Someone walking upstairs. I walked quickly over to the door. I opened the front door, and as I looked back, I could hear a man breathing heavily at the top of the landing. I ran out into my front yard. I was so scared and panicked that I think I even left the front door open. I hopped into my car and began driving away. As I looked back, the light upstairs was now switched off. Police checked the house and found nobody there. I will never know with 100% certainty who it was in my house that night. But deep down in my heart I know. This sick man did not come to the diner for a long time after this, but he has recently started showing up again. He came in last week for the first time in a long time, and has now become a regular again. He sits down and stares at me, and I have to serve him coffee. We both know he was in my house that night, but I cannot prove it. He just smiles and stares. Story 2. This story is told from the perspective of a female. This story happened not so long ago, and is still sort of going on today. The events of this story changed my life forever, and turned things upside down for me for good. I am studying at the local college in my hometown, and working part-time, to help pay for my studies, when my long-term boyfriend, who is a few years older than me, got a full-time job, and recently moved out and got a place of his own, a nice small house that was even closer to my campus. It was a big step, but I felt ready to move in with him, as I was a bit too old to be living with my parents. My parents were always very protective of me. I am their only child, and they've always seen me as their baby girl, and never as an adult. Especially my stepdad. He has always been very protective. Every boyfriend I ever brought home, he would give them the 3rd degree, and ask them every question you could ever imagine, and would sometimes even intimidate them a bit. It was part of their protective act, and I didn't mind it too much. I felt as though it was kind of sweet that they were so worried about me, and my safety. Parents are easily scared this day and age, with everything they hear on the news, and they want you to stay safe, and be careful at all times, and I fully understand that. When I told them that I was moving out, they took it kind of badly. They never really liked my boyfriend very much, especially my stepdad. He didn't trust him at all, and they both told me that I could stay in the house as long as necessary, and that there would be no problems, and I wouldn't even need to pay rent. Pretty much anything to get me to stay. I told them that it was my decision, and they eventually came around to semi-accepting the idea. Not fully, obviously, but more or less. I had been living with my boyfriend for about 4 months, and everything had gone so well up to this point, and we were both very happy, and even my parents seemed to have dropped their feeling of disappointment towards the idea. My class at college was made up of mostly guys. There were only 2 girls in the entire class, me and another girl. There were some kind of desperate guys in there, one of them called Derek. He used to stare at me constantly, always find a reason to call me, and would very often pretend that he was driving my way home, when we both knew very well that he wasn't. He made me feel very uneasy and nervous from how intense he was. He was the same way with me and the other girl in the class. She would often complain to me about Derek and his weird behaviour. Soon after the 4th month, weird things started happening. And when I say weird things, I mean freaky things. I began getting phone calls from all sorts of different numbers. They would phone, and when I would answer, I would just hear breathing down the other end of the phone, and then they would hang up. I also started getting weird things pushed through my letterbox. I would wake up to find worn men's underwear and drawings of me, just randomly pushed through my letterbox at night. My boyfriend worked nights as a security guard, so it really freaked me out that I was home alone by myself at night. I would keep all of the underwear and drawings for evidence. I was hoping after a few days that it would stop, but it didn't. It only got worse. I started receiving text messages saying things like, "I can see you," and the "I will always watch you," and even a message that said, "The vulture never loses sight of its target." The number would change each time. It would never be the same number texting me. One day I was super freaked out. I came home from college to find a large envelope that had been pushed through my door while I was out. My boyfriend told me that he'd been asleep, but had heard someone come and push it through, and that it looked important, so he didn't want to open it. I opened the envelope, and inside, there were photos of me. Photos taken outside my university campus. Photos of me walking home from university, taken from a car. There was also a photo of an eye, with a caption underneath it saying, "I watch you, and I never miss a step." This stalker had given me more evidence, but there was nothing the police or anyone could do, as there was no clue or indication to who this person was. To add on top of it, Derek at my college was getting more and more desperate to take me out, and was messaging me on WhatsApp all the time, pretending that he needed help with something class-related, just so he could talk to me, and I felt very tired and helpless. A few days went by, and weird photos, envelopes, and used men's underwear continued being put through my letterbox on a daily basis. The times would change. Sometimes it would be daytime, sometimes it would be nighttime. There was no consistency in the timings. On this one particular night, I was laying in bed, and I woke up to the sound of our side gate being opened, and then the sounds of feet flattening the grass in my backyard. My boyfriend was at work, so I was home alone. I then heard someone trying to open the back patio door downstairs. My stalker was here, and he was trying to get into my house. I then heard the packing of an envelope. I slowly creeped downstairs. When I got downstairs, I looked into my backyard, but I could not see anyone out there. I decided to turn on the patio light. I was scared as hell. Of course I was, but I wanted to see who my stalker was. I wanted to see who had been making my life a living hell for the past 2 months. I made the decision to turn on the patio light. I knew they were out there. They were just hiding in the darkness. I turned on the patio light switch, and there he was, stood in my backyard, with his back to me. I could see an envelope in his hand, a pair of men's underwear in the other. I already knew who it was. He turned around in shock to face me through the patio window, and I got to see very clearly who was behind all this, who was making my life a misery. It was my stepdad, stood in my backyard. When he saw me, he broke down in tears. He told me that he loved me, and that he had always loved me, and that I should be with him. I told him I was phoning Mom and the police. He picked up his things and walked quickly off. The trial is about to start soon. My mom is obviously devastated, and I feel as though part of her blames me for some of this. I don't know why. Perhaps it is a bad case of denial. It all makes sense now, though. The overprotectiveness I suffered, jealous of every boyfriend, devastated when I moved out. It all made sense, and the whole thing is a real-life nightmare. Story 3. I had a very happy relationship with my girlfriend for years. We were very happy together, and we even travelled the world together. Little did I know back then that she would end up becoming a crazy stalker that would not leave me alone. What makes this story even more ridiculous is that she actually broke up with me. It was not the other way round. 3 months after we broke up, I found someone else and moved on, and began dating an incredible woman that is still my girlfriend today. Once my ex found out over Facebook, she went crazy, literally insane. This is where the story begins, from her finding out about my relationship status going from single to in a relationship on Facebook. One bad thing is that because of Facebook's relationship status, it shows everyone who the other person is. So my ex had direct access to my new girlfriend from the moment we became serious. My ex then began sending abusive messages to my new girlfriend and telling her that we were still together, when we were definitely not. My new girlfriend nearly broke up with me because she thought I'd made up being single and had lied to her. My ex-girlfriend then began making different Facebook accounts and messaging my girlfriend, saying all sorts of horrible abuse about her. She also began following us when we would go out. She followed us around the mall on one occasion, pretending it was a coincidence. She was really obsessed, which was weird because she didn't give a shit about me when we broke up. But as soon as she saw me with someone else, she went in the complete opposite direction. One afternoon, I was at home watching TV when I got a call from my girlfriend. She was at work. She sounded very scared. She told me that my ex-girlfriend was sat in her car, in her work car park, staring at her through the window. She got security to ask her to leave, but she'd ignored them. She just sat there in the driver's seat, staring into the building. Eventually the police came and arrested her. She was found crying, sat in her car. What was really haunting is that she had a butcher's knife in her trunk. Her excuse for it was that she'd just bought it for her kitchen and had put it in the trunk, and it was just a coincidence. My girlfriend successfully got a restraining order taken out against her and has so far stayed away from us, and I hope we never hear from her ever again. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm truly grateful to you for listening to my content. Let me know your opinion on the video down below. And if you've ever had a run-in with a stalker yourself and want to share your story, feel free to do so in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, as it really helps me grow and enables me to make more and more content. If you're new to the channel, subscribe for more real life horror.